Good to see you in a new video on Betrayal Wife Tales. Today I'm going to tell you an interesting story of our subscriber.
I always thought of my wife, Emily, as the epitome of faithfulness. Simple, grounded, the kind of woman who didn't care about the drama or attention most people seem to crave. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5. Emily was the type of person who avoided the spotlight, content with quiet weekends at home, watching old movies, cooking, or reading. She wasn't into wild parties, didn't care about flirting with random people, and never gave me a reason to doubt her loyalty. Our relationship wasn't perfect, of course. Whose is? But it was solid, or so I thought. Then came the wedding. It was our mutual friends, Sarah and Tom, tying the knot. They'd been together for years, and their wedding was going to be a big reunion for our college group. Emily was excited, maybe a little too excited, but I didn't think much of it. I figured she was just happy to catch up with old friends she hadn't seen in a while. I didn't realize that wedding would become the turning point in my marriage, the moment when everything I thought I knew about Emily would shatter. We arrived at the wedding in high spirits, holding hands as we walked into the picturesque vineyard where the ceremony would take place. Emily looked stunning in her simple yet elegant dress, her usual modesty wrapped up in understated beauty. I couldn't have been prouder to have her by my side. As the evening wore on, I started to notice something. Emily, my quiet, unassuming wife, was suddenly the life of the party. She was laughing louder than usual, her smile wider, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in years. At first, I told myself it was the champagne, the good vibes of the event. But when she started spending an unusual amount of time with one of the groomsmen, Jake, an old friend of Tom's, I felt the first twinges of unease. They chatted at the bar, standing close, their conversation punctuated with laughter. I told myself they were just catching up. After all, we all knew Jake from college. But something about the way Emily leaned in when she spoke to him, the way her hand lingered on his arm, it set off alarm bells in my head. I tried to shake it off, not wanting to be that paranoid husband who ruins his wife's fun. But as the night progressed, I started to notice more. Emily seemed to be seeking Jake out, finding reasons to be near him. At one point, I lost track of her during the reception, and when I finally spotted her, she was out on the terrace with him, their faces lit by the soft glow of string lights. They were standing just a little too close, talking in hushed voices, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I tried to keep calm as I watched Emily with Jake from across the terrace. It was ridiculous, I told myself. This was Emily, the same woman who barely flirted with me when we first started dating, the same person who couldn't stand being the center of attention. She was just catching up with an old friend, that's all. But then they laughed, and Jake leaned in closer, his hand resting casually on her lower back. That knot in my stomach tightened into something sharper, something that felt a lot like jealousy. I wasn't usually the jealous type, but this was different. This wasn't just harmless conversation anymore. Something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was the alcohol playing tricks on my mind. I had to get some air and shake off the thoughts swirling in my head. I stepped outside and found myself on a quiet part of the terrace, away from the laughter and music. The cool night air hit me like a wave, giving me a moment to think clearly. I needed to trust her, right? Emily wasn't like that. She wasn't someone who would do something as reckless as flirt with a guy at a wedding, in front of all our friends, no less. But that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. When I walked back inside, I tried to keep my distance, watching Emily as she made her rounds. She danced with the bride, toasted with the groom, and seemed to be having the time of her life. But I couldn't ignore the moments when she gravitated toward Jake. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but I knew her too well to brush it off. Then it happened. Right as the night was winding down and people were starting to leave, I noticed Emily slip away again. I didn't want to overreact, so I let her go, assuming she was heading to the bathroom or grabbing one last drink. But when she didn't come back after 10 minutes, I decided to look for her. I weaved through the dwindling crowd, trying not to seem panicked, but my heart was racing. I checked the bar first, empty, the Dance floor, nothing. I stepped outside, scanning the terrace and garden area, but still no sign of her. And then I saw it, the faint glow of a phone screen coming from a secluded spot behind the trees. I moved closer, my breath shallow, my mind racing with all the worst-case scenarios. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but what I saw hit me like a punch to the gut. There was Emily, pressed up against the side of the building, Jake's body pressed close to hers. They were in a shadowed corner, but it was clear as day to me. His hand was on her waist, fingers digging into the fabric of her dress, and her lips were on his. I froze. My brain couldn't fully process what I was seeing. This wasn't just some innocent flirtation. Emily, my faithful wife, was kissing another man in the dark at our friend's wedding. It felt like the ground was slipping out from under me. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my heart hammering in my chest. Emily, the woman I thought I knew inside and out, was kissing Jake, her hands wrapped around his neck, their bodies pressed together like they'd done this before. I wanted to scream, to tear them apart, but all I could do was watch, completely paralyzed by shock. After what felt like an eternity, they finally pulled apart. Emily's lips were slightly swollen, her eyes wide and filled with something I didn't recognize. Excitement? Guilt? Lust? Jake whispered something in her ear, something that made her smile, and it took everything in me not to storm over there and demand answers. But instead, I just turned around, my mind racing, my stomach in knots. I needed a moment to breathe, to think. What the hell had just happened? I stumbled back into the reception hall, my legs feeling weak and shaky. The lights, the music, the people laughing and dancing, it all felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart from a distance. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready, not yet. I needed to figure out how this could have happened, how she could have done this to me. So I waited. I grabbed a drink, something stronger than I normally would, and tried to steady my thoughts. Maybe it was just a stupid one-time thing. Maybe the alcohol, the wedding atmosphere, it had gotten to her. People make mistakes, right? But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The way they had kissed, the way she had looked at him, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment lapse in judgment. This had been building for a while. Emily eventually reappeared, looking completely normal, as if she hadn't just been wrapped up in another man's arms. She came over to me smiling, her cheeks flushed, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself it had all been a bad dream. But the minute she leaned in to kiss my cheek, I pulled back slightly, unable to mask the hurt and suspicion bubbling inside me. She noticed, of course. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. I could feel her eyes searching mine, trying to gauge what I knew. "I saw you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "with Jake." For a second, Emily froze, her smile faltering, her face going pale. But then, to my surprise, she quickly regained her composure. "It wasn't what you think," she said, her voice suddenly calm, almost rehearsed. "He was just saying goodbye, and we got a little too close. It didn't mean anything." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But I couldn't shake the image of her lips on his, the way her body had responded to him. "That wasn't just a goodbye, Emily. Don't lie to me." Her eyes darted away for a moment, and I saw the guilt flicker across her face before she masked it again. "It was a mistake," she finally admitted. "It was stupid, and I'm sorry. But it's not what you think. I'd never actually cheat on you. You have to believe me." But the words rang hollow. I could see there was more, much more, that she wasn't saying. Emily's apology hung in the air like a bad joke, the kind where no one's laughing. She stood there, trying to convince me that what I saw wasn't what it clearly was. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. Something deep inside me had snapped. The trust I had in her, the faith that she was the one person in the world who would never betray me, was unraveling faster than I could keep up with. "You kissed him, Emily. How do you expect me to believe that was just a mistake?" My voice was low, controlled, but my hands were trembling. She took a step closer, reaching for my arm, but I pulled away. "Jake and we've just been talking," she stammered. "It got out of hand tonight, I swear. I'll end it, whatever it is, right now." I wanted to believe her, but that nagging feeling wouldn't let go. talking? That's what she called this? Her lips on another man, her body practically melting into his. Talking didn't lead to the kind of heat I saw between them. How long? I asked, my voice cold. How long has this been going on? She looked away, biting her lip, the truth hovering just behind her eyes. It's nothing serious, she said softly, but I could see the cracks forming. She was starting to crumble under the weight of the lies she had been holding back. We we just started texting a few weeks ago. I never meant for it to go this far, I promise. I felt a wave of anger rise up inside me. Texting. So this wasn't just a one-night mistake. It had been brewing, building up behind my back. Show me, I said, my voice flat. Show me the messages. Emily's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. Jake deleted them, she lied, too quickly, her voice shaky. He didn't want to cause any trouble. It was stupid. We just got too close, that's all. But I knew better. If she wasn't willing to show me, that meant there was more to this than she was admitting. Much more. Emily, you need to stop lying. Right now, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. If you don't come clean, I swear this will only get worse. For a long, tense moment, she was silent, staring at the ground, like she was trying to find an escape route. But then, finally, she let out a shaky breath, and the facade dropped. It's been a couple of months, she admitted, her voice barely audible. We started talking after we saw him at Sarah's bachelorette party. He messaged me on Instagram, and we just clicked. At first, it was harmless, just talking about music, life, whatever. But then, things changed. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. A couple of months? My voice was incredulous, barely holding back the anger boiling inside me. So, you've been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face all this time? She didn't say anything. Her silence was the answer I didn't want, but expected. I couldn't believe it. The simple, faithful woman I thought I had married had been living a double life, carrying on some secret relationship while pretending everything was fine between us. How had I missed the signs? How had she become this person? I'm so sorry, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't mean for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. The worst part? I could see in her eyes that she did feel sorry. Sorry she had been caught. Sorry she couldn't keep up the charade any longer. But the thing that truly hit me, the thing that left me standing there in stunned disbelief, was that this wasn't the first time. It couldn't have been. No one suddenly flips a switch and starts sneaking around after years of loyalty. This had been in her all along, hiding beneath the surface. Emily stood in front of me, her face pale, eyes full of regret, but I couldn't feel any sympathy. Not anymore. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved and trusted for years, had been living a lie. And now, all the lies were tumbling out like an avalanche, crushing what little was left of the foundation we had built. I never wanted it to get this far, she kept saying, her voice trembling. It was just excitement, something new. But it didn't mean anything. But the words rang hollow. It didn't matter what she said. I knew the truth now. She had let herself slip into something darker, something that had always been lurking just beneath her simple, faithful exterior. She wasn't the innocent, devoted wife I had believed her to be. She was someone else entirely, a stranger. I need to know everything, I said, my voice barely holding back the rage boiling inside me. No more lies, Emily. If you want any chance of fixing this, you need to tell me the truth. All of it. She hesitated, her hands shaking as she wiped away a tear. It didn't start as anything serious, she began, her voice soft, almost fragile. Jake was just fun to talk to. He was different. We'd text, and at first, it was innocent. But then, things started to get more flirty. He'd make these comments, and I didn't stop him. I don't know why. It just made me feel... She paused, struggling to find the words. Alive. Alive? That word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Had she been bored with me? With our life together? I didn't think it was cheating, she continued, her words rushing out now. Not at first. It was just flirting, just harmless fun. But after a few weeks, it got physical. The room seemed to close in around me. Physical? I asked, my voice shaking. What does that mean, Emily? Her eyes dropped to the floor. We met up a few times, she whispered. Just to talk at first. But then we kissed, and a few weeks ago we slept together. I felt the world tilt beneath me like the ground had fallen out from under my feet. Slept together. My wife had not only been sneaking around behind my back, but she had crossed the line I'd been terrified of all night. And now, here she was, confessing it like it was some unfortunate mistake. How many times? I demanded, my voice cold, barely containing the fury. How many times did you sleep with him? She flinched at my tone, but finally she answered, 3. It happened 3 times, but I swear it didn't mean anything. I didn't want it to go that far. I couldn't breathe. The betrayal, the lies, it was all too much. Emily, my wife, had slept with another man not once, but multiple times. And she had the audacity to stand here, saying it didn't mean anything, like that somehow made it better. I don't care if it meant nothing, I spat, my voice shaking with barely controlled anger. You cheated, Emily. You betrayed me, and now you're standing here, trying to justify it? She broke down, tears streaming down her face, her hands clutching at mine in desperation. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear. I was just lost, But I yanked my hands away, stepping back from her. You weren't lost, I said, my voice low but firm. You knew exactly what you were doing. You made the choice over and over again to lie to me. You made a fool of me. She sobbed harder, collapsing into a chair, her face buried in her hands. But I couldn't feel anything for her anymore. The woman I thought I loved, the woman I thought I had built a life with, was gone. All that was left was this stranger who had shattered everything we had. Is it over? I asked after a long moment of silence, my voice cold. With Jake, is it over? She nodded through her tears. Yes. I told him tonight. It's over, I swear. But I didn't believe her. How could I? She had lied to me for months, deceiving me at every turn. Even now, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more she wasn't telling me. I can't do this, I finally said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. I can't stay married to someone I don't trust. I don't know who you are anymore, Emily. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with panic. Please don't say that. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, But I shook my head, cutting her off. There's nothing to fix. You destroyed it. And with that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind the life I thought I had, the woman I thought I knew. The night air was cold as I stepped outside, but for the first time in hours, I felt like I could finally breathe again. There would be no going back.